यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुदस्तुन्यन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्. We are continuing our discussion on the Shankara Bhashyam, Shankaracharya's commentary in Sanskrit on Bhagavad Gita. We are right now dealing with the Bhashya on the 21st verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So the discussion and debate between the Mimamsakas and Advaitins continue as follows. Here, the one line of argument comes to a conclusion, and the Bhashyakara puts one question. Kva punaha vidushaha adhigara iti edaduktam purvameva jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam iti. This comes in the third chapter. Tatha cha sarva karma sannyasam vakshyati sarva karmani manasa iti. This is a reference to sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaaste sukham vasi navadware pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. That is the 13th verse of the 5th chapter. So the Bhashyakara concludes one line of argument before the Purvapakshi, the objector, the Mimamsakas, raise another objection. That is, if a question arises, then for what is the enlightened person fit? I mean, it was already established earlier that karma is not the way for the enlightened one. Karma is for those who are not enlightened. Enlightened in the sense, those who have not realized the Jiva Brahmaikyam, the unity and oneness between the individual soul and the universal Paramatman. Those who have not reached this experience, this Aparoksha Anubhuti, are supposed to be non-enlightened ones. Those who have reached this experience can be called the enlightened one. Not just intellectual understanding, but the experience of Aparoksha Anubhuti is what makes a person an enlightened person. Now the question arises, what is the path for the enlightened one? So after raising this, Bhashyakara says, Lord Krishna had already answered or is going to answer in the third chapter. Of course, we are right now dealing with the 21st verse, 21st sloka of the second chapter. So the Bhashyakara says, in the third chapter, Lord Krishna gives a very clear, categorical answer to this question. Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. Lokesmin dividhanistha pura prokta maya anakha Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So sankhyanam means jnaninam, for those who are enlightened one. For them, jnanam or the path of supreme knowledge is their path. That's what they are fit for. And for others who have not reached that state of spiritual evolution, they should follow the path of karma, which means at the beginning stage they should give up their lethargy and laziness and do their duties and responsibilities. At the beginning of our spiritual evolution, we may not be able to practice karma as karma yoga. Lord Krishna himself admits elsewhere, na buddhivedam janayed ajnanam karma sankinam. Those who are used to doing their work with a definite motive and purpose cannot all of a sudden start practicing karma yoga. So first of all, they should awaken to a sense of duties and responsibilities and should do their work with shraddha, with concentration, with focus. if they cannot do their duty without if they cannot do their duty without any desire, then they should do their duty with desire. Sakama karma is certainly better than akarma, or lack of any action. If a person has to choose between sakama karma, that is duty with desire or attachment, and total inaction because of lethargy or laziness, then a teacher, a spiritual teacher in Vedantic tradition, will give this recommendation. Instead of being lazy and lethargic and negligent and indifferent to your duties and responsibilities, you should do your duty. So that's the first advice given to Arjuna in the second chapter. The next stage is performance of these duties and responsibilities without any desire, that is karma yoga or nishkama karma. This will naturally make a person fully established in karma yoga nishtha. At that stage, nishkama karma or desireless action, performance of one's duties and responsibilities without any desire, without any attachment, this will become natural for a highly evolved soul. So karma yoga becomes your second nature. It's called karma yoga nishtha. And when you reach that stage, you naturally become fit for jnana prapti, because you will attain chitta shuddhi or mental purity. And once chitta shuddhi or sattva shuddhi is achieved, you are fit for jnana prapti, and then moksha is a gradual path, is a long road. So Lord Krishna says, those who have already attained chitta shuddhi, those who already reached the highest spiritual evolution, those who already realized their identity with Supreme Atman, for them jnana yogena sankhyanam. So here the word sankhya is used in the sense jnaninam. It has nothing to do with Sankhya philosophy. It means Sankhya ede, it means so somebody who realizes, who understands, who experiences his identity and oneness with the whole creation, who is able to look upon the whole creation as one spiritual family. For such people, Jnana Yoga is the path. For those who have now reached that level of spiritual evolution, Karma Yoga is the path. Tathacha sarva karma sannyasam vakshidi sarva karmani manasa. So this is the context. We have already discussed this subject. Now in this context, the Mimamsakas asked one question, and we have to understand the background of Mimamsaka philosophy to understand this, the psychology and the philosophical background of this Purvapaksha or this objection. Nanu manasa iti vachanat na vachikanam kayikanam cha sannyasa iti ched. So here is a question. Nanu manasa iti vachanat. The use of the word mentally, manasa, it shows that one need not renounce actions at the physical level, bodily actions and word actions. So somehow the Mimamsakas want to raise as many objections as possible to defend their Mimamsa philosophy, because they cannot tolerate the Advaitin's idea that the highest spiritual aspirant, the most enlightened spiritual seeker, is fit for sarva karma sannyasa. Karma, of course, here means yajnas, yagas, either saptahaviri yajnas or soma yajnas, so or different nitya karma, naimittika karma. All these karmas are implied directly and indirectly by the word karma here. So Mimamsakas, in their eagerness to preserve and to protect their ideal of karma, they ask the question in this particular Gita verse. So we have to remember these discussions take place around one very important verse in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That is the 13th verse. The verse is Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakaryan. This is the verse which we already discussed in an earlier session, but for clarity's sake we will make it clear again. So the verse is 13th verse of the 5th chapter. The meaning is this: renouncing all actions mentally and being established in self-control. When a person reaches that level of spiritual evolution, what happens? He understands that he is an embodied soul. He is an Atman living in a body. Such a person, he doesn't consider himself to be an actor or to be the subject of any action. Naiva kurvan nakaryan. He is not acting anything, and he is not making anyone act, or he is not causing any action to be done by others. He is not a prompter of other people in doing their work. He is not a prompter of action, and he is not a doer of action. He considers himself that he is one Atman, the he, that is Atma in this context means Atma. He is an embodied one, an Atman residing in a body. So body for such an evolved person becomes a tool, an instrument in which the Atman resides. So there are two levels of spiritual evolution. At the lower level, we think we are a body, we have a soul. That is the lowest level of spiritual evolution. When we evolve to a higher level, then we think we are a soul which is a body. So soul just lives or resides in a body. So such a person, what he does, he considers himself to be an Atman, to be the universal spiritual divine reality that is residing as an immanent reality, as an immanent divine spark in psychophysical mechanism, which has got 9 doors. So the expression is Navadvare Pure Dehi, a city of 9 gates. That's literal meaning. What are these 9 gates? So if you look upon this body as a city with 9 doors or 9 gates, the analogy, the illustration is this: Atman is a king, Indriyas are servants, or Indriyas are senses, intellect is a minister, and Ahankaram, the ego system, is a prince, a young prince, and mind is just a part of this Antakarana system. So what happens? Such a person considers himself to be residing in a body which looked upon as a city with 9 gates. So these 9 gates are these, that means 2 eyes which open to the outside world, 2 ears and 2 nostrils and mouth. These are the 7 gates of the body which is looked upon as a city. And then Guda and Upastha, which is below neck. So 7 gates above the neck and 2 openings below. So this psychophysical mechanism is here compared to a city with 9 gates and which is open to the outside world. Now for a highly evolved soul, this body is an instrument in which a soul resides. The king is Atman, which is unattached. The king is remaining within this body. The city belongs to him, but he is not bound by the city. The city is the body. The king is Atman, and the king is not attached He is not bound by these 9 gates. He is not affected by that. So these are the 9 gates, that is the senses of perception, senses of action could be considered to be the servants, intellect is a minister, ahankara or the egoist system may be compared to the prince, the young prince, and mind is the architect who builds this city, this or the fortress. It could be compared, the body can be compared to a city or a fortress with 9 gates that open to the outside world. The main point is the king resides within the city. He is not affected, he is not controlled, and he is not bound by these 9 cities. That is why Puredehi Naiva Kurvanna Karyan. So that's an important point. But this word is used, Sukham Vasi. The king rests or resides in this body in a very serene manner. He is not affected. He is not under the control of the senses. He is the king to whom all these belong. So this is the imagery you find in the 13th verse of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And it is this verse which forms the central point of this particular debate that is discussed in the commentary, in the Bhashyam, on the 21st verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which we are discussing right now. So the discussion continues here. Purvabhakshin is asking a question. Somehow the Purvabhakshin, the Mimamsakas, want to preserve their karma ideal, because according to them, karma cannot be given up. They believe that karma is the most important part of our human spiritual evolution, and they depend upon different injunctions in the Mimamsa literature to interpret this karma. So there are many statements in the Mimamsa literature. The original exponent or the Acharya, the teacher of the Mimamsa philosophy, was Jaimini. Jaimini Sutras, very huge sutra literature. There are many statements. So many of the statements they proclaim that as long as you live, you should perform these Vedic sacrifices. As long as you live. And if you want to go to Surga, if you want Surga Prapti, if you want to go to heaven, then also you should continue the practice of these rituals. Surga Kamo Yajeda. If you want to go to Surga, those who are aspiring to go to Surga, they should practice, they should perform yajnas and yagas. Jivan Juhuyat. You, so long as you are alive, you should continue the practice of different yajnas and yagas. Yavat Jive Karma Viryat. So long as you are alive, you should continue these Vedic rituals. According to Mimamsa philosophy, continuous performance of these external Vedic rituals is the most important, is the only way for one to attain dharma. Adhado dharma jijnasa. Dharma is the central goal. And when you do your dharma, you reach heaven. And after enjoying the results of these rituals which you perform in this life, in heaven you return and you are born again, and you continue these external rituals, and you go to Surga, heaven, and again once you have exhausted the good results of your rituals, your good actions, again you are born again. So again we must remember, the concept of heaven in Mimamsa philosophy is totally different from the concept of heaven as understood in the Christian literature or in the Abrahamic tradition in general. In the Christian literature, heaven has got a spiritual element in it. You are living in close proximity with God. But in Mimamsa tradition, it has no spiritual value at all. It is just a way of happy life, nothing more. So these Mimamsakas, they lay down different rituals, Nitya karmas, which are compulsory. So, for example, this Sandhya Vandanam, morning and evening, you should do your Sandhya, you should utter Gayatri. If you perform these rituals, you may not get any special auspicious result. But if you violate these traditions, if you do not perform Sandhya, then it could lead to serious negative consequences. So Nitya Karma is one. Then Naimittika Karma. Many of the rituals that householders, grihasthas have to perform. That's so closely related to the Shodasha Samskaras, or in the extended version there are 40 Samskaras, means the sacraments like giving food to the child on an auspicious day, in an auspicious manner, giving name. Jada Karma is one of the Naimitya Karmas. Then Kamya Karma, Putra Kameshti, according to the ancient Mimamsa philosophers, if you perform some rituals, then you will have good children. So all these rituals are meant only for material empirical benefits. They don't have any spiritual aspect about it. And then there are certain karmas, nishiddha karmas. Certain karmas one should not perform, one should not do. Say called surapanam. These are some of the wrong means. Those who take to alcoholic drinks, it is forbidden according to Mimamsa philosophy. Mimamsakas had a very ascetic, rigid concept of life as a whole. They were very Spartan. Even the most affluent Mimamsakas were leading a very Spartan, very ascetic life. But at the same time, they did not think of mukti or nirvana or liberation. Their concept of life was go on doing good actions, external rituals, Nitya karmas, Naimitya karmas, or Sapta Havir Yajnas, Sapta or Soma Yajnas. You go on performing all this, and as a result of these good rituals, this performance of these rituals, you will be able to go to heaven, and after enjoying a long life in heaven, you are born again as human beings. Or Prashchitta karmas. Suppose you somehow neglect some Nitya karmas, then there is a Prashchitta. It's a kind of, it's a penance. You have to perform certain rituals. So all these karmas have one goal, one purpose, to enable us to go to heaven or Swarga. Again, you have to remember the Mimamsa's concept of Swarga is a concept of happy life after death. So that's why wherever for some karmas, wherever a particular Swarga Prapti is not specially mentioned, then they have introduced what is called the Vishwajit Nyaya, Anadishta Phale Karmani Swarga Phalam, which means wherever there are some rituals which are prescribed, either properly as part of injunctions which are prescribed, and if you perform them, a special result may not be mentioned in the Mimamsa text. In such a case, what you should do, you should consider Swarga Prapti, going to heaven, is the result. For example, Nitya karmas, no special results are mentioned, but Mimamsa say that Nityanam karmanam phalam moksha. They say the moksha means Swarga Prapti, nothing more. Advaitins, on the other hand, Shankaracharya's philosophy tells you that these arguments, these views, that if you perform certain Vedic rituals, you will be able to go to heaven, it is all Arthavada. It's just a theology. Just to make you do some rituals, these texts, Mimamsa texts, they proclaim that if you do these external rituals, you will go to heaven. That's all. It's only an Arthavada. But of course, the Mimamsa philosophy has made one great contribution to Indian philosophy and Indian way of life. They have evolved a sense of sacredness and sanctity to Vedic tradition, and also a sacredness and sanctity to the institution of family life. So they believe that we have to do our duty to propitiate for the progress, for the well-being of our departed souls. For that you should perform certain rituals. Putrenayam lokaha, vidya devalokaha, karmana pitralokaha, etc. If you perform certain rituals, you will be helping your departed souls, your ancestors in their rebirth. So many of these ideas related to reincarnation, law of karma, and many of the ideas of sacredness and sanctity of the institution of family life, all these are being enriched by the Mimamsaka doctrine, though the essential Mimamsa philosophy is not focused on liberation or moksha. Still, traditional Mimamsakas were very ascetic and very Spartan in their lifestyle, and they always followed a very high moral principle in their life. Here the Bhashya continues, so we have to remember. So this is the background we should keep in mind when we try to understand why the Mimamsakas, the ritualistic philosophers, were so eager to preserve the ideal of ritualism as the central principle of Vedic philosophy. Shankaracharya did not teach us that Mimamsa rituals are all wrong. He did not say. He only insisted there is something higher. Those who are not interested in material benefits and those who are not interested in going to heaven should not be forced to perform these Vedic rituals. Vedic rituals and the results are all right for those who are not highly evolved in spiritual life. Just like children will need candies, but you can't expect older, wiser persons to aspire to desire candies. So like that, those who are more highly evolved, they have no use for this kind of ritualistic practices. So Mimamsakas here, they want to insist, Nanu manasa iti vachanat na vachikanam kayikanam sannyasa iti ched. The Mimamsas argue is a reference to the well-known verse, that is Sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaaste sughambasi navadware puri dekhi naiva kurvanna karayan. Here the word manasa, mentally, it doesn't mean that all that all yajnas and yagas should be given up. Those karmas, rituals which are to be performed by the body, by mind, all these should be preserved. We should not give up. Only mentally you can give up. Means manasika sannyasa, not kayika sannyasa or vachika sannyasa. At the physical level, we should continue all the ritualistic practices. Mentally, we must dedicate all this. We must give up all this. Means we must give up all attachment. Still, we should go on continuing the external rituals. This is the argument put forward by the Mimamsakas. So, manasa iti vajanat na vachikanam kayikanam cha sannyasa iti ched. It means no one has a right to give up the sharirika and vachika karmas. Only manasika sannyasa is implied here. That's why the word manasa is used. This is the Puravakshin's argument, Mimamsaka's argument. In answer to this, the Siddhantin, Advaitin say, Na sarva karmani iti visheshitatvad. So, sarva karmani clearly mentioned, all karmas. It is clearly mentioned, sarva karmani manasa sannisyase sukhambasi. That means manasika karma, kayika karma, vajika karma, vaidika karma, laugika karma, srauda karma, smartha karma. All these karmas are implied here, which means those who are highly evolved, those who attain Chitta Suddhi, they transcend all these karmas. They are fit for renouncing all these karmas, not just mentally, even physically, they are fit, they are spiritually fit to renounce, to give up all these karmas. That is the importance of the word used in the Gita sloka, that is sarva karmani manasa, sarva karmani, all karmas. That means, as I mentioned, manasika, kaiga, vachika, vaidika, laukika, srauda, smarta, all karmas should be given up. That's the implication. This is the view of Advaita, the Siddhanti. Now again Purvapakshi raises another question. So somehow Mimamsakas want to stick to the idea of rituals. They don't want to admit the fact you reach a stage in your spiritual evolution where you transcend, you can give up all these rituals. They are not willing to admit. Somehow they say they want to preserve the ritualistic aspect of Vedic philosophy. So manasanam eva sarvakarmanam iti ched. So manasika means manasanam sarvakarmanam sannyasa iti ched. That's what they question. Here, so manasika should be used as a visheshan of sarvakarma. So all mental action should be given up. So manasa iti visheshanat manaseshu karmasu sarvashabdaha sangujidasyat iti purvapakshinaha shanka. So Purvapakshi say the word the sarvakarmani should be conditioned, should be understood as conditioned by the word manasika, means all mental action should be given up. That's the implication of this statement. This is the view of the Mimamsakas. So again, they are limiting the meaning of the word sarvakarmani by the verb, by the visheshana, that is manasa. So means manasanam sarvakarmanam iti ched. So they want to look upon manasika karma as qualifying, modifying sarva karma. That means they want to make it, they want to bring the meaning to a very limited sense. So their argument is, why did Lord Krishna use the word manasa here? Sarva karmani manasa. It means you don't have to give up all the external rituals. You have to give up only mental rituals. So how can you divide? How can you detach mind from actions without some mental thoughts emerging in your mind about an action? You cannot act. This is the point of the next Siddhantin view. Na mano vyapara purvagatvat vakaya vyaparana mano vyapara abhave tat anubhapattehi. Without mind, there cannot be vakaya vyapara. I mean, you cannot do anything physically or verbally without the mind first thinking about it. So na mano vyapara purvagatvat vak kaya vyaparanam mano vyapara abhave tad anubhavattehi. All vak kaya vyapara means all activities at the level of vak and kaya. Mental level, the verbal level and physical level. Whether we utter a mantra, it is a vajika karma. When you recite a mantra, and when you perform a ritual reciting a mantra, it is vakaya karma. There is a vajika karma and there is also a kayika karma. Physical action and also verbal action. When you recite, it is a verbal action, and when you perform a ritual to the accompaniment of reciting a mantra, it is a physical action also. So both go together. But before you ever start this ritual of repeating a mantra and performing a ritual, you should always think mentally, you should ponder over these mantras. You should make preparations for the ritual, and you should also make yourself ready for reciting those mantras. And before all these, mind should do a sankalpa. Mind should think and ponder over these rituals. The first, mind evolves an idea, mind creates an idea, then actions follow. Without mind being involved, there cannot be any action at the verbal level, reciting a mantra, or at the physical level, performing a ritual. So, mano vyapara abhave tat anubhavattehi. I mean, it is impossible to conceive of any kind of ritual without mind being involved. Mano vyapara tyage vyapara andaranam anubhavattihi. That's one of the commentators make it clear. Mano vyapara tyage. If your mind doesn't think at all, then vyapara andaranam anubhavattihi. Then other actions also cannot be performed. Mind should first of all prepare you to do a ritual. And without the mind making the initial preparation in the form of sankalpa, speculation, and contemplation, thinking and preparations, other actions cannot follow. So the Mimamsaka's idea of drawing a line of demarcation, distinction between mental action and vakaya karma, manasika karma and vakaya karma, that attempt to draw a line of distinction will fall to the ground. It is totally illogical. Here again Purvapakshi is raising another objection. What a tenacity to retain the ritualistic ideas, Shastriyanam vakaya karmanam karanani manasani varjayitva anyani sarvakarmani manasa sanyaset idichet. In essence, what it means is, this is a Purvapaksha. Vaidiga Shastra Vihita karmas are there. So, what it means, you can give up some of the Vaidika Shastra, some of the karmas which are not ordained in the Sarauda Smarta tradition. Shastriyanam Vakaya Karmanam Karanani Manasani Varjayitva. So, all these Shastriya karma, Sharirika Vajya karmas and their Manasika karmas should be retained. All other karmas can be given up. That means Vaidika Srauda Vihita karmas, all the yajnas and yagas should be retained, cannot be renounced. And Shastra Vihita karmas should be performed, cannot be renounced. All other karmas you can renounce. That is the implication. So this is again another distortion of the true meaning of the 13th verse of the 5th chapter. That is Sarva Karmani Manasa Sannyasyasti Sukhamvasi Navadware Puredehi Naiva Gurvanna Karayan. That means Shastriya Sharirika Vajya karmas and their Manasika karmas should be retained, should be performed, should never be given up, should not be renounced. All other karmas can be given up. What are other karmas? That means yajnas, yagas, nitya karmas, naimitya karmas, prayaschitta karmas, all should be performed. Sapta Haviri yajnas, Soma yajnas, which are prescribed by Vaidikas, Vaidic Brahmanas, all should be performed. They should not be given up. They cannot be affected. They should be scrupulously observed. All other karmas can be given up. That means avaidika, ashastriya karmas. Practically there are no other karmas, really speaking, which are important. So this is Mimamsa Purvapaksha is very, very important. It means those karmas which are not Shastra Vihita, those karmas which are not prescribed in the Shastra, the Vaidika, Smarta Shastras, those who are not prescribed and mentioned or recommended by the Vaidika Smarta karmas, they can be given up. There are no other karmas. That means all Shastra Vihita karmas should be performed. So that's the idea behind. Now here again, to this Purvapaksha, Siddhanti gives an answer. Na naiva kurvanna kare nidhi visheshanad. So, a spiritually evolved person, a jnani who understands that he is an Atman, he is supreme divine reality, present in this body with mind gaze. Is that Atman, which is not agent of an action, which is not a prompter of an action. It's really clearly stated here. Such a person, he remains as a witness. He is not involved in any action, and he doesn't become the cause of somebody else doing something. So naiva kurvan na karayan. That is, for sharirika karmas and vajya karmas, you have to perform. Manasya karmas, you can perhaps prompt another person to do. So hedu kartrutvam, hedu kartrutvam, karmatvam. These three factors are denied in a jnani. A jnani transcends these three aspects, these three elements. Kartrutvam, that is when the agentship, doership, we are performing a yajna, you are the karta. A jnani cannot be a karta because it doesn't need any material benefits for which these yajnas and yagas and rituals are meant. So he is not a karta, he is akarta, and he is not a karma also. Nobody is doing anything for him, he doesn't want anyone to do any of these rituals for him. And naiva karayan, no hetu kartrutvam. It doesn't become a hetu for somebody else becoming a karta. So, kartrutvam and karmatvam plus hetu kartrutvam, all these three limitations are denied in a jnani in the statement na naiva kurvan na karen iti visheshanad. Purvapaksha doesn't stop here. Then finally he gives a very, very interesting, funny argument. Sarva karma sannyasa ayam bhagavataha ukto marishyataha na jivataha iti ched. Now Purvapaksha in the Mimamsa asking question. These are meant for people who are dying or dead people, not for living people. That means so long as you are alive, yavat jive karma guryat, jivan juhuyat. These are the Mimamsa statements. So long as you are physically alive, you should go on performing all these yajnas, yagas, nitya karmas, naimitya karmas, sandhya vandanas, Adhyatma, Agnishtoma, all the Saptahavir yajna, Soma yajna, all these you should go on continuing, you should go on performing so long as you are alive, physically alive. That's a Mimamsaka view. Yavat jivet karma gurya, jivan juhuyat. This is a view. So Mimamsa says, the sarva karma sannyasa, the very idea of sarva karma sannyasa, renouncing these Vedic rituals, this is meant for those who are dying, not for those who are living. So if you are living, you have to perform rituals. This is Mimamsa's argument. Of course, the Bhashyakara says, na navadvare pure dekhi aste iti visheshana anubhavattehi. The verse, the Gita sloka we are discussing is this: Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vasi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. So which are navadvaras? As I mentioned, 9 doors for each body. 7 above the neck and the 2 below. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils and mouth. 7 openings, 7 dwara, 7 gates opening to the outside world. If the body is a city or a fortress, these are 7 doors or gates through which you can get out of, means they are projected outward in external way. Then there are 2 gates below, Gudam and Upastham. So total 9 gates. Now for a dying man, these things don't exist. Mimamsakas say, Sarvakarma Sannyasa, giving up rituals, external rituals, it is recommended for dying people. Sarvakarma Sannyasa ayam bhagavataha ukto marishyataha is meant for dying people, na jivataha iti chet. Suppose we argue like this, Sarvakarma Sannyasa, renunciation of external rituals, is a recommendation, is prescription by the Lord Krishna, meant for dying people, not for living people. Bhashyam says, you don't worry about how many, you don't say that a soul is living in a body, it's like a city with 9 doors in the context, in reference to a dying man. You can say that only in reference to a person who is living. So, Navadvare pure dehi aste. Dehi Navadvare pure aste. This jiva, which is living within this psychophysical mechanism, is residing, is resting in this city with 9 doors. That is the Gita sloka. This sloka will be totally meaningless if anybody accepts your point. That's the Siddhantin's reply to the Mimamsakas. Nahi sarva karma sannyasena mrudasya tad dehi asanam sambhavati akurvataka akarayataha. Not only that, this nahi sarva karma sannyasena mrudasya tad dehi asanam sambhavati. How can an Atman living in a body of a person who is no more, who is dead? And how can you even think of Lord Krishna recommending sarva karma sannyasa for a person who is dying, who is already dead? And not only the Nayo Gurvannakarayan, he is not doing anything and he is not causing anyone else to do anything. How can you say dying man or dead man, he is not doing anything, he is not prompting anyone to do that? Such an argument, so this argument is totally ridiculous. Bhashyam says, your argument is totally meaningless because the Gita sloka says, Navadvare pure dehi. This Jivatma is residing in the body, which is like a city with 9 gates. That expression will become relevant and meaningful only in the context of a living person. Not only that, Lord Krishna says, Naiva Kurvanna. He is not doing anything, he is not an agent of an action, and there is no kartrutvam for him, and he is not a prompter of anyone else doing something. It doesn't prompt anyone to do anything. So neither kartrutvam nor hedu kartrutvam. Purvapakshi, the Mimamsakas don't stop there either. Now he is playing a new trick, the Mimamsakas. He is trying to distort the whole verse to suit his own argument. So he actually, the Anvaya, the prose order also is becoming a subject of discussion now. The Mimamsakas are trying to change the prose order of the sloka. Dehe sanyasa iti sambandhaka na dehe aste iti chet. So, dehe sanyasya iti sambandhaka. So, sanyasya should be interpreted in the context of deha. That means, sarva karmani manasa navadvare pure dehe sanyasya. This is the anvaya that the Purvapakshi is trying to put forward. So the very prosode of the sloka itself is altered by the Mimamsakas. The real prosode is Sarva karmani manasa sanyasya vasi dehe navadvare pure dehe aste naiva kurvanna karayan sukham aste. This is the real anvaya. Mimamsakas want to distort, change the anvaya krama of the sloka. So he says Sarva karmani manasa navadvare pure dehe sanyasya, which means all karmas should be offered, surrendered, should be submitted to this body. You put everything, you offer everything to the body. Dedicate all your actions to the body. Dehe sanyasiti sambandhaka. So, the anvaya krama itself is now under assault by the Mimamsakas. Dehe sanyasiti sambandhaka na dehe asti iti chet. See, the according to the real sloka, vasi dehi navadvare pure dehe aste. This jivatma, this is not different from Paramatman. It is free and independent, it is serene, it is not bound by anything, not affected by anything. It is residing in this body with 9 doors. Instead of that, but the Purvapakshi Mimamsakas is connecting the word sanyasya to the deha, mean dehe sanyasiti, dedicating all action to the body. So that means all these karmas are performed by sharira, by the body. Therefore, you dedicate all these karmas to the body. Then also you can be free from kartrutva and hedu kartrutva. This is the argument. So that means you need not give up the rituals. So all karmas should be dedicated to this Navadvare Pure Dehe. This is the Advaya, the prosode put forward by the Mimamsakas. That means all karmas which are performed by Sharira, the body, should be dedicated to the body. And then you go on performing all rituals. Then also you can be free, the Atman can be free from all kartrutva, that is agentship of action, and also hedu kartrutva, mean being the cause of somebody else doing something, these rituals. So this is another argument, because the word sannyasa as itself has 2 types of meanings here that we have to remember. That is as kshepane and as tyage. So the word sannyasa, this sam and ni upasargas and asudhadu nyan pratyaya, it is called mean tyaga. So nyasa means ni asudhadu nyan pratyaya, you can nyasa. So this asudhadu can also have kshepanartha. That means where you just samarpanartha. So Mimamsakas are trying to distort the meaning of the word sannyasa into samarpanartha, not tyagartha. Advaitins say the asudhadu is used in this context in the sense of tyaga. So as tyagarthe, that's the interpretation of Advaitins. So sannyasa means giving up, renouncing. That's the meaning according to Siddhanti, Advaitins. Mimamsakas, they want to change this meaning into Kshevanartha. That means sannyasa here should mean samarpanartha. You do samarpana. You dedicate all your karmas to the body. So Mimamsakas are completely distorting the Anvaya Krama of the verse. So Mimamsakas say, Sarva karmani manasa sanyasya navadware pure dekhi aste. This is the Anvaya of Siddhantin or Advaitins. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasya navadware pure dekhi aste. This is the Anvaya Krama of Siddhantins. That is Sarva karmani manasa sanyasya vasi dekhe navadware pure aste. Here, the word manasa sanyasya is used according to Siddhantins, according to Advaitins, in the meaning of tyaga, giving up. The same sannyasa word is distorted to mean samarpana by Mimamsakas. So that is not acceptable to Advaitins. Here, Siddhantin gives an answer. Na sarvatra atmanaka avikriyatva avadharanat. Because sarvatra here means srutishu and smrutishu. In all Srauda Smarta literature, Atman is explained, the soul, universal soul is explained as avikriya. That means avikriyatvam. Atman is akarta, abhokta. So Atma cannot have kartrutva, karmatva or hedu. This is the natural universal interpretation, explanation or description of Atman in all Srutis and all Smritis. So sarvatra atmanaka abhikriya avadharanat. Asana kriyayaha cha adhikarana apekshitvat tat anapekshitvat cha sannyasasya. Sampurvaha tu nyasa shabda iha tyagartho na nikshepartha. So that point is again emphasized by the Siddhantis Advaitin. They say nyasa shabda here is used as tyagartha in the sense of renunciation. That means these two upasargas followed by asadhatu and yang pratyaya tyagartha. This is the interpretation of Advaitins or Siddhantins. The same word, the same dhatu can have another kshepanartha or nikshepartha. So that second meaning, that is nikshepartha or kshepanartha means samarpanartha, is put forward by the Mimamskar objectives to preserve the karma ideal. Bhashyakara says it is totally unacceptable, because if you read any Shruti or Smriti literature, Atman is always described as avikriya and akarta, bhokta, etc. And another important point is put forward here. Asana kriyayaka cha adhikarana apekshatvat. There is a word used here in this verse, dehi aste. So that word, that should be understood. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vasi navadware pure dehi naiva kurvanna karyan. So dehi navadware pure dehi aste is used here. Aste means it is residing or sitting, being present, etc. Now, for sitting you need a place. Atman is sitting somewhere. Atman is residing somewhere. The word aste itself is a kriya. It needs an adhikarana. Without an adhikarana, the word the kriya a word like aste cannot be used. And that adhikarana should be this navadware pure deha. It's only in this sharira. If you use the word sannyasa as nikshepartha, then it will become totally meaningless, because the adhikarana, as the word, the kriya, that is the verbal form, aste will not have an adhikarana. Sitting, so you should mention where you are sitting. If water is there, if you have water, the water needs an adhikarana. An adhikarana may be in the form of a glass or a pot or something. Without that, water cannot exist. Similarly, you are sitting somewhere. For sitting, you need a place. So this Atman is residing or being seated or is present in this body, which is like a city with 9 doors. So this is a more natural and logical interpretation. Therefore, Advaitin say, the Siddhantin say, he emphatically will make the statement that your view, the Mimamsaka's view, that the word sannyasa is used in nikshepartha is totally unacceptable. The word sannyasa can only have one meaning, that is tyagartha, in the sense renunciation, not nikshepartha or kshevanartha. This is the argument put forward by Advaitin Siddhantins as a reply to the Mimamsakas. So the discussion will continue. Apparently it's a bit closely involved form. It's kind of an argument, highly argumentative passage, but it has got a great relevance in our life, because actions are needed, work is needed, but we should also be able to think of a higher paradigm for life beyond action. Action is necessary, but action should not be our master. Activity and action, physical activity, should not spiritually enslave us. Advaita philosophy, non-dualistic philosophy, presents before us a higher paradigm of life. There is a state where we transcend action, where we go beyond the pursuit of empirical goals, empirical enjoyments. We should be able to sit quiet and think of some higher values that is as important as working, as being involved in pursuit of empirical goals and success. So we will continue the discussion in the next lesson. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.